To all my guests. I'm Pritima Kaushal, and on behalf of ISTD Delhi chapter, I extend a very warm welcome to all our guests. So, friends, in continuation of our Golden Jubilee celebration series, it has been our endeavor to bring to you the best speakers, the best topics which will be of interest and value to our esteemed members. Today, we are here again with a very relevant topic: making organizations future ready, the HR perspective. And a very distinguished speaker is with us, Mrs. Veena Swaroop, former Director HR, Engineers India Limited. So I welcome you, ma'am. Now I request our chapter chairperson, Mr. Mukesh Jain, to welcome the guests.
Thank you, Pratima ji. A very good evening, friends. I, on behalf of Management Committee of ISTD Delhi chapter, welcome you all the Golden Jubilee Year evening talk on making organization future ready, the HR perspective by veteran HR leader, Ms. Veena Swaroop, former Director HR Engineers India Limited. Friends, Indian Society for Training and Development, popularly known as ISTD, established in 1970, is a premier national institute of training and development professionals. ISTD has celebrated its Golden Jubilee recently. ISTD maintains a large chapter network with 46 chapters and more than 8,000 institutional and individual members. The society is affiliated to IFTDO and RTDO. ISTD conduct a PG diploma in training and development, a correspondence 18-month course through distance learning for the purpose of recruitment to senior post under the central government and PSUs. Friends, during this Golden Jubilee year, ISTD is giving 50% discount in the life membership. You can enroll yourself paying less than 5,000 rupees online for life membership. For more details, please log in to istd.co.in or istddaily.in. I once again welcome Madam Veena Swaroop ji, all the past national president, chapter chairpersons, NC members, senior members, and friends from ISTD, NIPM, NHRD, DMA, FMA, ISTD diploma students, faculty members and students from BIMTech and various other institutes. I wish you all a wonderful evening and joyful weekend. Namaskar, over to Pratima ji.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jain. So now I request Dr. Itilekha, Professor BIMTech, to introduce the speaker. Over to you, Dr. Itilekha.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. Good evening, one and all. We all are very fortunate to have ma'am Veena Swaroop today. Veena Swaroop for the evening session, Making Organization Future Ready, HR Perspective. Thank you, ma'am, for giving sparing your valuable time. I personally take this as a privilege and honor to introduce Ms. Veena Swaroop today. Ma'am Veena, an MBA graduate from Lucknow University, during her illustrious career, she has had several key managerial positions. She superannuated as Director HR from Engineers India Limited, a premier PSU company in year 2016, June 2016. During her tenure at EIL from 2012 to 2016, she has undertaken several path-breaking initiatives towards strategizing HR through effective talent management, employee communication, CSR, etc. She is currently an independent director of boards. Prior to EIL, Ms. Swaroop contributed in various capacities in Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Limited, ONGC, from 1983 to 2012, where she contributed immensely in all the functional areas of HR. She also gave shape the project of SAP HR implementation. During this time, on deputation from ONGC, she had also served a short stint at Mangalore Refinery and Petrochemicals Limited in Directorate General Hydrocarbon, which is an upstream arm of Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Post Anvishan, Ms. Swarup advised Rural Electrification Corporation for over a year. She is presently associated with FICCI, IMA, DMA, NHRDL, NIOD, and working in the area of skill development, diversity, entrepreneurship, board leadership, HR, CSR, etc. She is also a board of reputed academic institutes like IMA, IB, Hyderabad, Ford School of Management, SP Jain Institute of Management and Research. She is the founder and chair of Network of Women Entrepreneurship at DMA and also chair FICCI Task Force for Developing Traditional Cluster through Skilling. To her credit and achievements, she is one among very few women to entry any PSUs in the early 1980s and to be a woman board members in a premier company. She has been recognizing with various awards, to name a few. She has won Women Achiever Award for Excellence in Organizational Management by Indian Council of UN Relations and Ministry of Women and Child Development. She has also won HR Leadership Award by Asia Oil and Gas Congress, HR Professional Award by Asia Pacific HR Congress, IB HR Leadership Award, World Women Leadership Award by Women Congress, Women Leadership Congress, I'm sorry. Also honored by Society of Human Resource Management for outstanding contribution in the area of HR. So much ma'am's contribution, and really I am not going to take so much of time now. So ma'am, please share your valuable thought, and really it is a honor that you are with us today. Thank you so much, ma'am. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Itilika, for such an elaborate introduction. I sent a very brief one, which you had already displayed on the screen, so I was quite surprised to see such an elaborate introduction. Thank you very much for the same. So good evening, everyone. And at the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers for having me here today. My compliments to them for this initiative, for this lecture series. And before I proceed, my compliments, heartfelt compliments to all HR professionals world over for showcasing their capabilities during this pandemic, when the HR profession has really come up, when for business continuity, various mediums have been adopted, and how HR in every organization has proved that an organization is incomplete without an effective HR department. A number of stalwarts, I'm told, have spoken before me on these in this series, and they've shared various aspects of HR. I thought today, let me touch on how to make organizations future ready, especially the HR perspective. Because whenever we talk about organizations being future ready to meet the future challenges, the first thought goes on infrastructure, on technology, on the kind of strategies to be, where should be the footprints, what should be done. But also important is to keep in pace with all this. How is the human resource management going to be effective? So I thought, let me focus on this. And in my talk, when I'm speaking, you'll find that what I'm speaking is something which all of us have experienced. And I have so many stalwarts sitting here. I have Mr. Jorilal sitting here. I have worked under him when I was a very, very junior officer. I have Mr. Dwarka Nath, Mr. GP Rao, and so many of you who may find my talk very, very basic. But I want to touch on the youngsters and those who are still in service, because there are many things and many nuances which I feel we as HR professionals must understand. And while I'm talking, I would be touching on my own brief experiences to make my point clear. So Peter Drucker said that the best way to predict the future is to create it. And another quote of Mahatma Gandhi, which I like very much, when he said, future depends on what we do in the present. So now is the time to prepare for the future. Over the years, we have all seen and experienced changes in our lives, changes in our organizations. In fact, if I recall, and while I'm talking, I will be talking a lot about my experiences in ONGC because, frankly speaking, I've grown in that organization. I've been groomed in that organization, even though I did retire from the board of EIL. So the organization underwent 3 restructurings during my 30 years in ONGC. And the last one, which we had in the mid 2000s, 2003, 2004, that was a very drastic one to keep in pace with the business environment, to keep in pace with the work environment, to make the organization really globally competitive. And it's still there with, maybe they must have done a number of iterations even now. So we went through those changes, and change is difficult. But how did we get future ready? How did we manage it? And other large organizations also do go through a lot of change all the time. Over the past few years, we had been preparing for Industry 4.2. We were preparing for disruptions, turbulence, but the types of disturbance and turbulences that we were talking about were in disruptive technology. In fact, there was a study by FICCI and NASSCOM where they identified that the key drivers for the economy in India are globalization, demographic dividend, and exponential technologies. So when they talked about globalization, what it said was that it's the opening up of the markets, of the trade corridors, Brexit, and all these various areas where business models need to change now. When they talked about demographic dividends, it focused on migration of workers and things like that, and exponential technology and what impact it's going to have on jobs and the future of jobs and the future of work. So that was so far. And then in March, when we were still thinking about how we prepare for Industry 4.0, we've all undergone a pandemic. We are still in it. So in this point of time, when it was unprecedented, we had never even thought of it. And we all realized, everyone today talks about new normal. So new normal has shifted. And what is the new normal today? It's work from home, it's social distancing, and every organization, big or small, has embraced digitalization. So that's a total shift that has happened in the entire working of organizations world over, not only in our country. But organizations have to cope. They have to cope and move on. And for business continuity, what is required mostly is finances. You need supply chain, you need demand, but more above all, you need the workforce and leadership. So my talk is going to dwell a lot on leadership and the workforce, because I sincerely believe that industry at heart is a people's business. Please do focus on what I'm saying. It is a people's business, and business does not create value. It's the people in the business that create value. And the key differentiator of any organization is its human resource. You may have the best of organization, you may have the best of systems, the best of processes, but it's the workforce, it's the human resource of that organization which differentiates one organization as better than the other. So when we talk about business strategy, which is so critical for an organization, and we talk about business strategy, we can look at it that it's the hardware which drives the future organizations. So if business strategy is the hardware, then value-led and purpose-driven, it's essentially a value-led and purpose-driven HR practices, which is the software which is important for sustainable growth of an organization. So here again, you see that we come into the softer part of HR. So what would then be the factors that would be impacting the future of work? If we look at it, I listed a few of them when I was pondering on this. And how do things change? Why does the work change? Why does the environment change? It's because of the economic changes. As we went through this time, the GDP dropping, the demand going down, everything interacts with the other, everything has a reaction. Increased competitiveness in the work environment, exponential technology we are all aware of, then rise in millennials, their expectations, their expertise, they can't be undermined. Their expertise, their knowledge, their impatience, changing organization structures, and this leads to changes in organization structures and design. And there is a drastic need of agility. Wherever you look at now, it has to be agile organizations, the agile leaders, agile workforces. Agility is today the main thing which is required. I'd like to mention to you about a study which McKinsey Global Institute did. It was a survey of about 3,000 business leaders. And the highlights of that study brought out, it's not now, this study was not done during the pandemic, this was done prior to the pandemic. But you see, things don't change because when the study is there, they're talking about future of work. Only thing is that future of work, which we were thinking, has shifted because of the new normal, and certain things have got expedited, which earlier were expected maybe in 2030. They have come a little earlier or would come in a little earlier, but otherwise the future of work would be the same. So what they've highlighted here is that what you require is a continuous learning. Shift to cross-functional and team-based work. Jobs be reduced to tasks. They need to be reduced to tasks and be redefined as the tasks change. So each time there's a change of task, the job roles, they need to be redefined. Leadership and HR needs to be very, very adaptable. Companies need to be agile and have sufficient knowledge for adoption of technology and automation. So building a workforce for the future requires the collaboration of many agencies. It's the organization, it's the academia, it's the industry, it's the labor unions and the government. So all these put together bring in, so it's an interplay of all these. The study also mentions that with the coming in of exponential technologies, they said 2030, but maybe now things get a little expedited. They said that there will be a change in the skills which are required and the skill sets which are required. So those which are physical and manual jobs, like general equipment, operation, navigation, inspecting, monitoring, these kind of physical and manual routine, mundane jobs, basic cognitive jobs, basic data input, processing, basic communication, these would all be taken up by automation. So those skills would not be required. So there's a shift which is happening. For higher cognitive jobs, complex information processing, interpretation, creativity jobs, there would be a partial. The partial would be that some part would be manual still, but some part would get automated. And for this, you would require then, for the manual part of it, you would require leadership, you would require entrepreneurship. So that skill would be required. And for social and emotional areas of work, you would definitely require this leadership and entrepreneurship. And for the high-tech jobs, you will require very high IT skills. So the shift now was towards leadership, towards entrepreneurship, and towards very, very high leadership skills, which they've said would be required. So we need to prepare for all of them. I'd also like to mention another study done by Deloitte, where Deloitte mentions that business models need to match disruptions. So you can't stick with the same. When I talked about ONGC restructuring 3 times during my time in ONGC over 3 decades, there were some disruptions which the top management realized, and so they felt that the organization would do better. And so came the restructuring. So this business models need to match the disruptions. Then what we need is another focus area is the culture of innovation and risk is required. Reskilling is required. Again, they say agile workforce, embrace the pace of change, make talent mobility a core value. The talent, the human resource, the workforce of the organization must realize that they have to keep pace with the organization. The organization cannot keep pace with the workforce. So that kind of talent fungibility is required there. So speed, agility, adaptability are the key drivers. And they also suggest that the focus should be on a very effective performance management system with an ongoing feedback. And that I experienced in ONGC and I implemented in EIL when we implemented the balance scorecard. And I realized that how the performance of an organization improves when you have a constant target setting milestone. And I am a real advocate of balance scorecard because I feel that's a very, very important tool. So now there is a global shift and country, but with this pandemic especially, there has been some kind of a shift. Countries are looking inwards. So I mentioned initially about the FICCI study. At that point of time, everything was global. Today, countries have started looking inwards. Automation and cognitive technology has increased the area of focus towards work. Businesses have started looking at alternative forces models like gig economy, platform workers. So things are changing today because it's work from home. So this has given a real impetus to gig economy today. The idea of hybrid workplace where you're going to have a physical working in an office and at the same time work from home. Because organizations today also are not working to a full capacity, to a full strength. So the things which can happen from home, and there are many organizations which are saying that we are very comfortable working from home. Productivity is not bad at all. So then why should I have an office space? Why should I have transport charges? Why should I have travel for people? So those which are essential, the shop floor, etc., there you need to do it. And then another aspect has come into it. With social distancing, it has shown the path and given impetus to multitasking. Because on a shop floor, you had one person fitting one bolt, one person fitting one nut, one person fitting one assembly. But today you have social distancing. You can't do that. So you're going to multitask. So you're going to skill and reskill and upskill people to come and match that requirement. And that becomes the way of life. So of course there may be job losses because of that, but let's hope that more businesses come up and that is balanced accordingly. So when I've spoken about all this, the global shift happening, the changes happening, at the heart of all these activities, who's there? So I began by saying that it's business does not create value, it's the people that create value. So at the heart of all these activities, who's there? Is the people of the organization who will define and then realize the vision of the organization. So the need today is for a highly charged environment, an innovative environment. You require innovation is really required today. And who will create that? It's the human resource. Through leadership, teams, and culture, this can be created an environment of innovation where you can match the requirements of the times. And the HR department is the custodian of all the human resource. We are the owners. I've always believed in this. Some department heads may own their own departments, but we as the human resource department, human resource professionals, we are the owners of the entire workforce, of the entire human resource of the organization. And we are the change agents to ensure a smooth transition with minimum anxiety of changes to the leaders as well as to the teams. So actually HR has a very, very important role to play. I'll briefly dwell upon a bit on leadership, on teams, and on culture and their interplay. So when we talk about leadership, today is the time. In these present pandemic times, especially in the lockdown times, that was the time to display good and effective leadership. It must be effective through a proper talent pool and appropriate grooming and succession planning. You can't just plant a leader somewhere. The process has to be followed. So who's going to do that process? It's the responsibility of the human resource department to see there's effective grooming, there's effective training, and then there is effective succession planning. A leader who's placed, accepted by all, who's looked up to by all, because ultimately it's the leader who has to drive the organization. The leader, as I said, needs to be agile, needs to be resilient, must have a clarity of vision, goals, and objective. Unless the leader has clarity of the vision and the goal, and if there is any ambiguity in the mind of the leader, no matter how much efforts may be made, the team can't be clear. It's only when clarity of goal is there that targets can be set, priorities can be set. And once that is done, you have the roles and responsibilities and for each and every team member. You may be having 3 team members doing the same job, but each and every individual must have their own job profile. What are they expected to do? What are their targets? If you don't set targets for them, if you don't set priorities for them, you can't blame them for not giving results. So it's a leader's responsibility to do that. Assign targets, monitor, and evaluate. So one has to walk the talk. A leader has to work more than the team members because the leader has to display discipline, passion for work, and then only will the team do that. Some people feel that a leader can just sit and enjoy and the team is going to work, but that's not going to work that way. They have to maintain and lead teams. I'll come a little more on my own experience in this. Have trust and faith in the team members. This is very important. You need to trust them. Somewhere if the trust deficit is there, again, there'll be roadblocks in the way. If we keep doubting our team members, we don't believe in them, it's better to give a team member a benefit of doubt. If something goes wrong, it will surface rather than always doubting a team member. Have effective communication. And when I talk about effective communication, it has to be both ways communication. It has to be, the leader must keep addressing the team. The leader must be accessible to people. But the team member should feel free to be able to communicate even their personal problems. Because there's a small little thing which may be bothering someone, it impacts the work. If you can do something, very good. If you can't, just give your shoulder to the person. That makes a lot of difference. And this, what I'm talking today is what I have implemented all my life. This is something which I have believed in. This is something which I have felt. So it's all what I'm sharing is not what is from a textbook. It's something which I have lived through, and I wish that, and I enjoyed every bit of it, and I wish others would also do that. Then the leader must involve in HR planning and HR development. Things cannot always be ad hoc, even for a small company. In a small company, in a startup, you may be having a person doing 2 things, and an HR person may also be doing marketing. Never mind. But let's be very, very sure that whatever workforce we are planning is planned properly. There's a purpose to it. You can't keep on catching and attaching people here and there and getting the work done. That doesn't work for very long. And then capacity building, development of people. Some companies are very, very conservative in developing people. I come from public sector. I'm very proud of coming from public sector, and a lot is invested in us on development. But a lot of private companies also do that. I've seen they have their academies, they have their institutions. But when I go to various forums these days, a number of people ask me, especially in MSME sector, that we will groom someone and the person will go away. Madam, what do we do? But that risk one has to take. It's a balance. You have to retain your people with the way you create an environment for them. You can't retain them with pressure. If they'll go because of that, means they're not happy in your company. And if a person is getting an opportunity to move out, happily let that person go. A minimum of attrition is a healthy thing for an organization. But if you try to retain people by not training them, you are losing out on the special technologies yourself. So that part of investment in technology, in development is very, very important. Then one must focus on effective motivation. And when I say motivation, I don't really mean only monetary motivation. Private sector can think of any kind of motivation, but in public sector, we have our limits. We can only perform within the Department of Public Enterprises guidelines. We have our salary structures fixed. We have our incentives fixed, but yet we retain our people. I'm not bragging about public sector, but I've lived there. I've been there all my life. So obviously I will speak about it. We have people who join and retire from the same company. I never even thought in my wildest dreams that I will ever not retire from ONGC. It's just that I've moved on a board and my seniors sent me on that board. They wanted me to be there. So I applied and I moved on. But otherwise, I would have happily retired from there. So 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, people put in an organization, but we have no powers to give them a differential salary. All our salaries are known to everyone. There's nothing secret about it. We cannot give any special incentives. So what can we do for motivation? So when I talk about motivation here, I'm not talking about monetary motivation. The kind of environment that is created and the kind of encouragement the person gets to grow, the kind of capacity building we do, the kind of reward and recognition within the organization to reward a person at the right time, to reward the right person. That is very important. So as I said, the leader must engage with the workforce. So when I've spoken so much about the leader, let's just look at the HR part of it. Who's going to do all this? When we talk about policies, we talk about transparency, we talk about the leader doing HR planning. It's the HR professionals and the HR department in the organization which is actually responsible for this whole thing to facilitate that the leader is able to function the way it is required. So it's a very big responsibility on the HR department. Now coming to teams. So in teams, some of the key drivers which I have listed out for effective teams are role clarity, well-defined goals and objectives. Now it's the other way. I talked about leaders doing that. Now for teams, you need this empowerment, but along with empowerment is accountability. One must understand that there is a lot of accountability required and that must be bestowed on them. Recognition and committed teams. So when I say this, it's a total interplay between leadership and teams. And then I get reminded of the time. See, when we join an organization, we all join in teams. At the lowest rung in an organization, we are team members. We learn from the day one to work in a team. And it's very healthy to be able to, if you're a good team player, you can make a good leader because you understand the nuances of teamwork. And if you understand the nuances of teamwork, you will ensure as a leader that the team functions accordingly. But as one rises, maybe 2 years down the line, 3 years of your service, you start heading small teams at your own level, your own department, your own group, team lead. And then gradually you get opportunities to rise and you become project heads, team heads. So I did get opportunities, but one of them which I'm most passionate about is the SAP HR project, which I headed in ONGC. That was about, I think, 15 years back. We concluded it. It was from the late 90s. It took us about 3 years or so to complete that project. It was the largest in Asia at that point of time, where we covered the entire length and breadth of the country. All our sites, all our projects, all our regions were covered. All employees from the chairman to the Khalasi were covered in that, all processes. And it was a large team. I had about 200 people, out of which, and they were some of them located in different locations. It was multidisciplinary. I had people from IT, I had people from HR, of course, and then from material management, from finance, and we had the Siemens Information Systems Limited as our implementing partner. So you would wonder that why am I giving reference to that experience? Because let me tell you, that taught me a lot. I realized at that point of time the responsibility of a leader. You've taken the responsibility from the organization and the objective is to implement something within the timeline. It's a responsibility to bring about a total change in the functioning of HR, because on one hand, you were a totally paper-driven organization where everything was happening on paper. So the interpretation of rules also, in the same room, there could be 3 or 4 or 5 group heads sitting, establishment heads sitting, and they would be interpreting rules in a different manner. You are streamlining those and bringing them together on the same platform. There was a lot of responsibility. And human beings are human beings. So team members were those human beings who would have differences amongst themselves. So the important role of a team leader is to see that you ignore those differences, try to patch up those differences, and see that there are no differences within the team. Let there be such an environment in the team. Do not create a competition environment in a team. The team members should not compete with each other. They have to complement each other to move on. And as a leader, there are some very small things which one can do. So it was a tough project because when you are doing such a drastic change, there were multiple unions to pull it down. There was the officer association to pull it down. There were several agencies wanting to pull it down. Because who wants an ERP for HR? Who wants that there is so much of transparency? No one wants that. They could be getting some allowances at a particular station, but the moment you put that down in an ERP, those allowances are gone. So there was a lot of streamlining. There was a lot of pressure on me. But with the help of the team and the top management, we were able to do it. But we had to be clarity of thought there. And we all had to speak the same language. And I'm so proud to say that the team members that we had at that point of time, there were some who just joined the organization. They were youngsters at that time, their first assignment. Today, they are 15 years into the organization. They're at middle management level. And I feel proud when the current top management says there are stars. They're doing so well. They're leaders now. They're department heads now. And they're really doing well. And I feel very proud and happy about that. Then there were some who were senior to me. Because they came there because they were specialists. And then, you always have finance and HR at dagger's ends. Now, I had those teams because the payroll had finance there. How do you keep them all together? And I still remember one incident when we were to run the payroll and it was to start in the night at 3 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock in the night, I was based at Delhi. My development site was at Dehradun and the finance payroll team was sitting at Bombay. So I get a call from the head of payroll saying that there's some problem in the data. And unless that's rectified, we'll not be able to run the payroll. I was under pressure to have a dual payroll that time. The legacy payroll should also run and the SAP payroll should run. And I had taken a stand that no, we will have only the SAP payroll running. Because the moment you have legacy and this running parallel, the faith on this will be lost totally and we will never be able to establish. So it was a challenge I took. So it was winters, it was a cold wintry night, I remember, and 1 o'clock in the night, I rang up these 2 young boys and I told them that you need to go back to the development site. It was snowing in Mussoorie, I still remember. It was bitterly cold. And I told them you need to go to the site and do something within 2 hours so that we are able to meet the deadline of running of payroll, because if the payroll had not run that day and if the salaries got delayed, that would have been a stigma on our entire project and people were waiting for that to pull it down. But these boys went. But what as a leader I did at that point of time, I'm not bragging, but honestly, I rang up the control room department and asked them to send a vehicle to them because they were young boys and there were no Olas and Ubers at that time. This I'm talking about 2001, 2002, or was it 2003? I can't recall. So at least that was my responsibility as a leader to see that they have a vehicle to pick them up at 1 o'clock in the night in the bitter cold. And by the time they reached the site at Tel Bhavan, we had a guest house there. I called up the guest house chap, woke up that chap on phone and told him, you please take tea and something for them. This team is reaching up to people, please ensure. And those boys were there till 1 o'clock the next day because till the payroll ran successfully. So something one has to do. There were such situations happening so many times. I could not be physically at every place. Sam, whole night they were working. I could not be physically there, but I used to try to be with them on phone, try to see that their comfort is there. Because if they are comfortable, if they feel cared for, then only will they want to give for the organization. If I leave them on their own, you manage your own, walk on your own, take a cab, do whatever you feel like. I want you to reach there and do it. They would do it. But that feeling for the project would not come. And even today, we have a WhatsApp group and we are all together. That whole team is still together. So that much for teams. Now, coming to culture, it's a hidden unifying theme that provides meaning, direction, and mobilization to action within an organization. So, culture is something which is very subtle. In fact, if I tell you the experience of culture, Pratima, have I overshot my time?
You can take another 5 minutes.
Only 5 minutes. My God.
Okay, take 7 minutes.
Just give me about 10 minutes more.
Yeah,
then,
sure. Okay, carry on.
When you talk about this, there are different types of culture I experienced. I was in ONGC. We were owners of assets. I went to EIL. We were consultants. So we had clients, and ONGC was one of our clients. I went to MRPL, and there the culture was different. They were private, moving on to public sector. And Director General of Hydrocarbon was a regulator. The maximum amount of credibility was required there. So in this scenario, you realize each has its own culture, but how they operate within the culture, the HR department has a very important role to play in that. Many feel, and it's this our HR professional management, which brings about this play between leadership, teams, and culture. Many feel that HR is everyone's cup of tea. And many say, what's so great about HR? I recall one instance when one gentleman from another company was talking to me, and he said, what do you do as a professional? You are a qualified professional. What do you do in HR in ONGC? I was at that time in the promotion group. I was a junior officer, a manager level officer, or a deputy manager in the promotion group, and I was also in the policy group. For me, 24 hours I felt were falling short with so much of negotiations and so many things happening. And here this gentleman is asking me that what do? You only prepare papers. We do the promotions, we do the deployments, we do the hiring. So I also jokingly replied back to tell him that I prepare the papers professionally. But actually I was very angry at him. But more than him, I was angry at the HR department of his organization, because I felt that HR department had not worked professionally. So gave the opportunity to the technical person in the organization to say that HR has nothing to do, we do everything. And we can put that assignment which anyone else can do. Professional HR management is not seen as much as felt by employees. The leadership and the environment within the organization and around it. It has to be felt. It exhibits the confidence of workforce on management, of the leadership on the workforce, and the customers on the organization. So it's all about HR management, and it comes through transparency, enhanced credibility. Many occasions come when the line managers feel we are also the best HR managers. What's so great about HR? But it's the HR professionals who are setting the policies. Very often, the line managers may want to circumvent that because they want to promote a particular person, they want to deploy a particular person. But please keep your process transparent. If you're sending people for training, I was very particular about that. When you're sending people for training, normally people send the most spareable people, but training needs to be given to all. And I think everyone needs to be groomed. So in that scenario, what I used to do was I would call for that person's profile whose name was put up to me for an approval, and also for the rest of the department, how many people have not gone for this training. And when everyone knows that my turn will come, I will go by my own turn, and there is a process being followed. That kind of a transparency increases your credibility. Credibility in HR is very, very important. Faith. Unions need to have faith. I still remember union leaders coming to me and telling me, Madam, what you were saying, we were opposing in the meeting, but please guide us. How can we do this now? Because you need to have data and facts to back up whatever decisions you take. Don't take impulsive decisions. You are dealing with human beings. So when you're dealing with human beings, do not take any impulsive decision. Let every decision be backed with data, with facts. Then your credibility increases. You must have your fingers on the pulse of the workforce. That is really important for every HR professional to follow. Engagement surveys is a good way of doing that, but there could be many other ways, town halls, open houses, but never allow simmering to happen. Never allow some kind of murmuring to happen. Do not put anything under the carpet. That doesn't rest there for long. It's better to move, to go to sites. I would meet all the people. And once you meet the people and understand what they say, what do they want? Whom will they go to if they'll not come to the HR? If you can not do something and there's a reason for it, explain it to them there and then. They understand. Don't dilly-dally things. If you feel you can look into it, take that and give them time. That by this time I'll come back to you. By the time I used to visit a site and come back to my headquarters, those issues had reached my office. And I had a group whom I had given 1 week's time to come back to me, whether it can be done or cannot be done. And if it cannot be done, let's get back to the people it cannot be done. Don't keep them hanging. A lot of people have the habit, especially HR professionals, they'll say, kar ho jayega, ye bhi ho jayega, wo bhi kar denge, and they'll never do it. They'll wait for their term to finish and move on. That's where HR loses credibility. Truth always prevails. We need to walk the talk. We need to be very collaborative. We need to be proactive to the changing needs of the environment. We need to constantly review our practices and try to get the best practices. We need to take accountability. And I had some examples, but this one I will definitely like to share with you all. When I took over at EIL as Director HR, and when I was just trying to get an understanding and bearing of the organization and what the HR departments are, what they do and things like that, it came to my notice that there was a field personnel cell looking after the HR matters of the field personnel, which are very important for us. And that was reporting to Director Projects. So then I had a discussion, why is it so? He said, because we want things timely and HR will never do it, because that's the feeling everyone has for HR. So I said, why is that so? He said, because we need things timely and that's really never going to happen. I said, then what are we sitting here for? So we took the HR FPC cell under us. It's still under the HR. But then accountability came to us. And for almost 3 months, I was like the head of FPC myself, monitoring on a day-to-day basis. And then the culture set in and they did it. So we need to take on that responsibility. We need to recognize good work. So we need to have policies for that, but again, transparent policies. We need to review and apply multiple work models to see what suits the organization where. We need to balance between technology and touch. So don't get so overboard on technology that you lose out on touch. Personal touch is very, very important. So some organizations say we are going to outsource everything, but for heaven's sake, maintain that touch. So when people say there'll be no more HR now, I always say HR is not going anywhere. HR will be there. It's the nerve center of an organization. So finally, I'll say that to be future ready, for future ready organization, we need to be ready to restructure organizations, to redesign jobs, to reskill talent, to re-engineer the workforce, to reconstruct teams. Because future organizations, the focus will be on process excellence, to evolve on processes and operational excellence, purpose-driven culture. So you need to do design thinking, special thinking on what is really meant for the organization, adaptive technology, agile teams, and top-driven. Leadership has to drive this change into the future of the work and future organizations. So I'll end with a quote by John F. Kennedy when he said, "Change is the law of life. Those who look to the past or the present are certain to miss the future." So sky is the limit for all professionals in HR, and I am sure that with all focus, you all in your departments will be ready for meeting the future challenges of future organizations. Thank you very much.
Pratima Madam, are you there?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So I'll start from beginning. So thank you very much for a very engaging presentation, Veena ma'am. I enjoyed every minute of it. Many great ideas and examples presented, very relevant in today's world, lots of implementable ideas. So now is the time for question answers. But I must say that more than questions, there are 2-3 questions, but more than that, there are very nice comments, which I would like to share with you first before I ask the questions. So Rajeshwari ma'am from Kota, I think she's saying that awesome points, Veena ma'am. It's important to have a basic attrition and we need fresh ideas to breathe and grow. And Dr. Rashmi Diwan is saying, you are a great inspiration to colleagues walking the talk. Another comment is, awesome points, balancing technology and touch. Super, Veena ma'am. Yashwant Chauhan says, great insights, great sessions, insightful and information sessions, Dr. Johari is saying. So now I would take up the questions. So one question is by Mr. Chandrasekhar, and he's saying, what is upskilling, reskilling, and meta-skilling?
Okay.
What is upskilling, reskilling, and meta-skilling?
So upskilling would be, that you already see. Reskilling, it would be that what skill is already available, you are skilling the person on that same skill again. Whereas when you talk about upskilling, it's on a higher technology or something like that, that you in that same field. And then you come to a new area of skilling where you would be doing it. So there would be different areas depending upon the person that you would be doing the skilling.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So the next question is by Mr. Pavan K. Sharma, and he's asking, it's a long question as well as an observation, both together. So he's saying that leadership at the top in PSU is temporary in nature. Top leaders come with an agenda for a limited tenure. How can the leaders develop the culture of an organization created for a long period with people with long association with that organization? The fate of PSU lies with the political leadership whose interests are more political than productivity.
I will give a very simple answer to this, that in public sector, you have to be in public sector to realize the worth of public sector, and we grow within that organization through our leaders, and our leaders are those who have grown from within the organization. So to say that the leaders are very temporary, I will not agree with that, because yes, I moved to EIL, but I was from public sector. But in majority of the companies, we have people growing within the organization, so they understand the entire organization. So it's not as has been put across.
Okay. Okay. So, ma'am, the next question is by Dr. Iti Lekha, and she's asking, being a woman, what challenges you faced in the early part of your career in ONGC and say 30 years after?
Itilika, you must attend one of my sessions when I talk to women, because my what I say always is, that there is no glass ceiling. I never felt I was being treated differently because I was a woman, and I got the best of opportunities and assignments. So you have to perform. The bottom line is results in an organization. If you perform, you get your assignments. So then there was no difference between my male colleagues and me. So I enjoyed working whatever I did.
Okay. So this question is by a student, a very bright student, Mr. Karthik Mittal. He's saying, good evening, ma'am. Thank you for this insightful session. My question to you is that I just want to ask your views on new labor codes, and would it ease their doing of business and HR?
See, there could be different views on this. It's not something which I can say in a sentence. It's a separate debate and a discussion in itself. Yes, things have been put in perspective to facilitate industry and labor. So let's look for it. Let it be implemented. Let us see. I'm sure it would benefit because a lot of effort has gone into it. So let's hope for the best. Anything which is old needs to be changed. So I suppose this also now is in tune with what's happening in other countries. So it's been done with the purpose of facilitating. So let's hope it really serves. It has to be implemented to see how it works.
Right. The next question is by Babita, and she's asking, what are the steps we can work on as an HR professional to achieve more productivity?
Productivity, again, I will say it comes, as I said, that a business does not create value, it's the people that create value. So we really need to make an environment of productivity. We need to create, and when she's talking, I feel she's talking from the point of view of an HR professional. So definitely we need to create that environment. We need to give them that environment where they can think, where they can feel free, and not an environment where they're bound with so much of tension that they're not able to operate. Where their families, we give them best of welfare facilities, they work. So I'm sure that would help.
So another question is by Mr. Mohit Baba. He has two questions. One, he's saying that how have you maintained learning mindset in your organization in the public sector? So one question is that how have you maintained a learning mindset in your organization?
People have to be driven to it these days, because the youngsters these days don't like to write. They don't like to read. They want to, everything is on the net and everything is so easily available. So I used to drive my team members into it. You have your paper writing competition, have debates, have business simulation exercises, do all kinds of things where they're going to read, where they're going to implement. So then only this learning thing will come. And then, it's also good to have these learning sessions and these knowledge sharing sessions. And there are a number of initiatives which need to be taken simultaneously. And again, it has to be the HR department driving all this.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So
I hope I've been able to prove that the HR department actually has the major responsibility in an organization.
So, ma'am, the second question by the same person is a research scholar at IIT Roorkee, Mohit Baba, who's asked the first question. So the second question is, change could be possible only with the top management support, and it's very difficult to get it. Please give your views on it.
So to Mohit, I will say this, that yes, the change has to come from the top, no doubt about it. But then change will only happen when the top management really thinks that the organization needs it. I presume that he's talking about changing of organization structure or diversifying or footprints into other areas. So that is the top management's job. But yes, we must take ideas from the youngsters also, because they sometimes have really very good ideas. So it's a good and a healthy environment where there are brainstormings and where youngsters are also encouraged to give their ideas. Those are healthy environments.
Okay. Right. So one question is from Mr. AKM Rahman. He's asking what program HR can initiate to establish a good culture in an organization, which you have dealt with, but nevertheless.
I will not say that one has to create a program for that. It has to be your day-to-day functioning. It has to be in every action that one takes. It has to be the transparent environment. It has to be a feeling of comfort. And even if a person is leaving the organization, let that person go gracefully from the organization. They are your brand ambassadors. So, it's so many activities put together. But one thing is there, an HR professional should never forget that they are being watched all the time, that their image really matters. So no action should happen such which is negative. A positive environment should be generated all around.
Mm. Okay. So now this question is by whether it's an observation or a question. Let me just read it. Dr. Johari Lal is, you have worked with him. So he's saying, excellent Veena ji as usual, but why we do not have nowadays professionals like you who are committed and self-motivated? Complaint against you was that you are very demanding.
I hope when he means demanding, he's saying a hard task master. So
Yes.
yes, but then the point is that I also said that 24 hours were less for me. So when you are demanding from people for work, I don't think it was a complaint. My team members still love me a lot. And let me tell you, we all could do it only because of that. So and even today we have people like that. I'm very proud to say that we have a lot of youngsters in ONGC, in EIL, who really will give anything for the organization. So we are lucky that we have people even now.
Right. So, ma'am, Mr. Meena is asking, should HR always be headed by a HR personnel, or should we give chance to a technical personnel also?
Can I be very frank here? I will be frank because I'll say HR is a highly professional area. And those para droppers and those parachuters who come into HR and feel that HR is everyone's cup of tea, they're best left to their own areas of work. And yes, HR has to. I missed out some points because I was rushing up in the end. So they have to work in collaboration with every activity. This one point I missed out, I must say, every activity of HR must happen in collaboration with the line managers. Because ultimately it has to be done together.
Sure.
But if you say that someone has to work within the HR department, it has to be an HR professional. I would say that at least.
Hmm. Okay. So Yashwant Chauhan is asking, how do you see HR role emerging, keeping in view enhanced interaction between humans and machines?
See, let me tell you, it's again creating of job opportunities. But as I mentioned in that McKinsey study, the skill sets are shifting. So we need to do skilling accordingly. We need to, and then when we are doing that activity, we need to see which could be more other avenues where we can utilize them. So as long as that touch is there between, the balance is there between technology and touch, I think there's no issue at all. But we must keep in mind that human beings have that anxiety. How can we overcome that?
Right. Okay. Okay. Now, this another question by Mr. Pradeep. He's asking the future ready organization concept should work with how many years of perspective?
See, when I spoken about future ready organization, I'm not spoken about number of years. We
Hmm.
have to always be, my basic message and mantra today was that we need to be agile. We
Yeah.
need to be credible. Credibility is very, very important.
Yeah.
We need to be transparent. We need to be professional. So whether it's coming down the corner, and it's not going to happen that future ready organization that suddenly a change will happen 20 years down the line or 30 years down. And it's not like that. It's a gradual shift which is happening. We have to be geared up for it. So that kind of agility is required.
Right. Right. Okay, ma'am. So these were the questions. I think more than questions, there are a lot of very nice comments, a lot of compliments. So, okay, one last question. So, Gaurav Patel is saying, thank you so much for a great session, ma'am. My question is, when line managers and your senior crazy about your ideas, I can't. My question is, when line manager and your seniors crazy about your ideas about create a positive environment for productive enhancement as a HR, what can we do?
I couldn't get the question actually.
I also am unable to understand. So Gaurav Patel, you can unmute yourself and ask a question, please. Gaurav, Gaurav Patel, can you hear me? No, I don't think so.
Sorry, I can't reply because I really don't
Also,
understand. I think he missed out something in his typing.
yeah, he's
So,
not been able to, write it correctly. So, okay, Puneet Kumar is saying, any suggestion will you give to experienced professionals who want to move from training into HR? From training to HR. I don't know what he means.
training is also part of HR,
Yeah,
but
that's what,
if someone is already a qualified HR professional, I think job rotation is very important in any case.
right,
Because
right,
unless and until one has job rotation and different assignments, you don't get exposure. You're not actually able to handle people.
right. Okay.
So I'd love to have all my compliments that I've got today. So it would be nice if you send them to me.
Yeah, yeah, surely. I'll just compile them and I'll send them. Lots of them.
We will send the chat box, Madam.
I was just joking.
I think we'll do that, right? So in the end, we still have about 7 minutes. So I would now request, thank you very much, Veena ma'am, once again. And now I would like to invite Mr. Sahu, who's our General Secretary, to summarize the key takeaways from the session. Very briefly.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Pratima ma'am. Learning is a very, very personal thing. And whatever I would be telling now would be my learnings from this session. In fact, many people have put their learnings in the chat box, which Pritima ji read out. So Veena ji started off with compliments to the HR fraternity for the role they played in the pandemic, the seminal role they played. Then she started off with a quotation from Peter Drucker that the best way to predict future is to create it. And she also talked about the FICCI survey, where the survey talked about three things. One is globalization as the future of the business, demographic dividend, and exponential technology, which is taking the world forward. And she also talked about two further surveys, one by McKinsey, the other by Deloitte. And in the McKinsey survey, which actually talked about to 2030, which would actually come forward because of the pandemic. The three things which the McKinsey study talked about are continuous learning, jobs to task. In fact, when we are talking about AI, it's not the jobs which are at risk, but the tasks which are repetitive, which will be at risk. Adaptability by the leadership, and of course, agility and technology. She also said that it is the jobs which are mundane and basic cognitive jobs, which will be at risk, which the machines will take over. But the other jobs which require high cognitive skills, social and emotional skills, and high technology, they will never be at risk, no matter how. She talked about the Deloitte study, where the study talks about speed, agility, and adaptability. And finally, she, in the last part of her session, she talked about three things. One is leadership, teams, and culture, and the interplay of these three concepts. And she also gave her own experiences from the SAP implementations which she did, and also moving from organization to organization, from ONGC, AIL, MRPL, and the cultural aspect of all the three organizations. Finally, Veena ji, she started off with a quotation, and she also ended with a quotation from JF Kennedy, that change is the law of life. And no matter where the business leads us, the disruption leads us, we need to adapt to change to survive and thrive. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Sahu. Thanks a lot. So in the end now, I would request D.V. Shastri ji, our chapter vice chairman, to give a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Pritima ji. It was indeed a wonderful session.
Yeah.
In fact, the response from the audience makes this thing evident that the session was really engrossing, and this happens only when the speaker is speaking from the core of the heart. Whatever Veena ma'am spoke today, it was coming out of her long experience and rich knowledge. So that is the wisdom and experiential learning which she shared with us. So thank you very much, ma'am, for your availability, making yourself available on the platform of ISTD. And personally also, I have learned a lot from you, being in association with you on various platforms, not only GAIL EIL, but other platforms as well. So there is always a new thing to learn from you whenever I interact with you. As you mentioned in your session, you talked about case study competition and all. So we had the honor of having you with us in our institute when we organized such a case study competition for our women executives. So that's how we keep learning. And I am also thankful to my colleagues, on behalf of my colleagues on this ISTD Managing Committee, Mr. Mukesh Jain, the chairman, Mr. Ajay Sahu, our honorary secretary, Mr. Arpit Suri, our treasurer, Madam Sucharita, and the beautiful coordination by our Pratima ma'am. So all of us extend a very warm and hearty gratitude and thanks to you. We are also grateful to the participants, rather the stalwarts in their own areas, like Dr. Johari Lalji is there, Dr. G.P. Rao, Mr. Deepak Bharara, Dwarkanath ji, Mr. Ashok Deshpande from Nasik, Mr. Mukesh Vyas from Jaipur, Dr. A.C. Rao from Vizag chapter, Mr. Parimal Gandhi from Baroda, Dr. Gangadharan, Mr. Atul Shah from Goa, and Madam Anita Chauhan from Kota chapter. She is very active always. Mr. P.K. Sharma, Mr. A.K. Saxena, and to make a special mention of Mr. Abidur Rahman, who has perhaps joined from outside India. And I thank each one of you. I also thank those who have asked the question, because without inquisitiveness, learning doesn't take place. So I must thank them also for asking the relevant questions and getting the befitting answers from the speaker. And I also thank Madam Iti Lekha from BIMTech for her nice context setting and introduction. And thank you one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shastri. Now, in the end, I would request Ma'am Sucharita to, sessions, the next event, which is happening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to share with all of you that ISTD Delhi chapter is organizing a webinar on the coming Saturday, 16th of January at 6 p.m. The theme of the webinar is of deep relevance to the times that we are living in. The title is all about COVID-19, prevention, lifestyle, vaccines, mental wellness, and stress management. The eminent speakers of the webinar are Dr. Anil Handu, Senior Director, Lab Services, Chief of Academic Affairs, BLK Super Specialty Hospital. Second speaker is Ms. Priyanka Kapoor, Senior Clinical Psychologist, BLK Super Specialty Hospital. All are requested to kindly participate in the upcoming webinar, which promises to be an enriching session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sucharita ma'am.
Thank you, Pratima.
Thank you. Okay. So, right, Mr. Jain, the last.
Yeah, let me thank Pratima ji and our Vice Chairman D.V. Sastry Saab, although he has covered everybody. So let me thank Mr. D.V. Sastry also, and all my friends from various chapters, and all my seniors. Thank you very much, and namaskar. Namaskar, Veena ji. Thank you.